All right, so the first step is to do the line between the lips. And so we're going to underline line between the lips, use mechanical pencil. Then you're going to shade for form. So you're looking for the, like the lips aren't very big, so you're not going to put a ton of value on there. But you are looking for your darkest or medium values, and you're going to create the form. As you're doing that, like your bell work stated, you should be looking for small details. So right now you're going to circle, is your top or bottom lip darker? So in looking at Charlotte's, the top lip is slightly darker, and it's slightly darker than her skin tone until you get over in the shadow. For Daniel, I would say his top lip in general is darker than the bottom, and it's darker than the skin tone on either side. And then I'm noticing that this side, because it's in shadow, is darker as well. Usually your top lip, because it's angled like downward or inward, it doesn't get as much light. And usually it's not as big as your bottom lip, so therefore it's usually darker. That's what I'm going to circle. So for Charlotte's, her top lip is darker. Circle which one applies to you. Then as I'm starting to shade, I look at how much darker or lighter is the lip compared to the skin tone in each little area, like what it's next to. All right. So you determine what pencil should be used. Hers are still fairly light in general, so I'm only going to use a 2B pencil. But I'm first going to start with that line between the lips with mechanical, and I'm going to looking at like the corners of the mouth as well. And I'm looking like, is the line thicker or thinner in places? Does it have like a little like sunken in area or a little dot in the corner, like a little dimple? And hers flows over. Okay, then I would shade for form and value. So I'm going to apply, so I'm looking at like this little area. Actually, let me see if I can get that on the same screen. Okay, so I'm looking at this area compared to the skin. Is it lighter or darker? Slightly darker. So I'm going to kind of gently outline and match that value and fade in. And then I am noticing like right above the line there's a little bit of shadow. I'm going to add a little bit above the line. And then I'm going to do a thin layer over her lips. All right, bottom lip, I'm noticing how it's darker, like there's a core shadow on the bottom lip, and it's generally darker along the bottom with a little bit of shadow in the middle, and I'm trying to avoid the highlight. So anywhere where you see lighter value, you're trying to avoid. Even if it's not bright white, like your blender will do the work for you. So I just look for shadow along the line. I feel like this is gonna need to get darker over here. Then with smaller medium blender, whichever works for the size of your drawing, you're gonna go over it. You're trying to keep clean edges so you don't have to refine. And I kind of blend over the line to soften. And of course, where it's lighter, don't press as hard. All right, then we have refining to do. So at this point, we're going to add any lip wrinkles you can see. That helps create the form of the lips with mechanical pencil. And I'll draw a couple of what we're trying to avoid. So for lips, what we're trying to avoid is this, like lip wrinkles. That looks weird and it makes them look flat, and you guys are not very old, so your lip wrinkles are not as intense. And if you can't see them, I'm gonna get out mirrors today and put them up on this front table. Like, babies are born with lip wrinkles, everybody has them. So in general, in the center, it's straightish. And then as you start to get to the corners, it becomes more curved, and sometimes they curve up from the bottom. And they kind of angle a little bit more on the top lip. So just the direction of line helps to create form. So you're going to do that with mechanical pencil. And if there's a ton of little ones, just look for the major. So she has quite a bit. And you can always add more, but it's hard to take away. And then you're gonna kind of touch blend over those. All right, so I blended over the lines drawn, but just like kind of gently. And then we're gonna erase out highlights. And small areas of light value, and then we'll have to go back and refine. Like, we'll probably have to do another layer of lines. And that includes the line between the lips, because it's a texture. So remember, anything that's a texture looks better layered. True for people as well. All right, so with the kneaded eraser, or if you have like an actual shape of a highlight on your lips, then I'd trade your ID and get a pencil top eraser. I'm gonna do this off padding because we're gonna get fine little lines. All right, so pinching it to like a little cone shape and then make it flat. I'm going to draw back in, and I'm gonna keep pinching because I want it to be precise. And I'm looking at how her highlight gets smaller as it goes to the left on the bottom lip. All right, then I'm gonna look for any reflected light or light areas in the shadowy part. She has a little bit on that part of the lip, and I feel like I got a little too dark over here. I'm gonna blot out. Okay, then I'm ready to refine, so I'm gonna go back over the line. I feel like this part needs to get a little bit darker. And I'm gonna do another layer of lines again. Okay, then I'm gonna touch blend over the line again. Get that part up a little bit. Touch blend over the wrinkles, because you want them to look soft, you're not old. All right, and then I would erase out one more time the highlight. So you want to keep pinching. So every time I'm like pinching, re-pinching the kneaded eraser. And then if you have an extreme highlight, you can kind of scrub it off with the pencil top eraser. Soften that a little bit. All right, so there's lips if you have a closed mouth. Now I'm gonna do open mouth and teeth. So if you have a closed mouth, you're gonna work on your refining skin tone. Then I also look around, like she has a little bit of a highlight above in the Cupid's bow area. So I'm gonna pull that part out. So I'm kind of also looking at like refining skin near the mouth. Like sometimes you'll have a lighter area above the lips, which has a little bit of a highlight on that side, a little bit lighter. So if you haven't like fully refined near the mouth, then I would also refine skin around the mouth. All right, so if your mouth is open, I'll put that one aside. So even if you have teeth showing, sorry, I thought I lost it. Okay, there's the blender. I'm still gonna shade the lips first, and then teeth, and then the inside of the mouth last. And then if you have braces, I'll do a couple of braces on his teeth. Braces are last. Okay, so it's the same thing, looking for form, except we don't really have like a dark line in between, so I'm not going to use a mechanical pencil. I'm going to determine like, okay, what shading pencil would look good. And I'm keeping in mind that the top lip on the left, the top lip on the right is darker than the one on the left, and it's darker than his skin. So I'm going to try to get a clean edge that's slightly darker than skin. Shading for form. I'm looking at how like the bottom of his lip is slightly darker. So adding a little bit. I'm gonna use a small blender on his lips because they're like much thinner, much smaller. Using less pressure where it's lighter. And you really want to try to get rid of the outline. So that's true for like everyone, unless you have heavily lined lips. We want to try to get rid of the outline. All right, then I would refine with mechanical. I would look for any sharper edges, so like along here, he has a little bit of a shadow underneath. Kind of fade that in by hand. And if it's a tiny little area, like I'm trying to fade out with mechanical so I don't have to touch it again. That's a little bit of a shadow. And this kind of all fades into shadow here. Okay. Then, even if your mouth is open, you probably still can see some wrinkles. All So he has very few. He has some on the bottom lip. Couple in the center. And the top lip has just a few. Because his skin is stretching. Alright, so you want to touch blend over wrinkles. Like soften them up. Alright, then with kneaded, with kneaded eraser, I would erase out any areas that are lighter, any reflected light areas, or if you got too dark in the lips, you can lift out some of the value. Refine any edges that you need to refine. I'm going to blend over his lip lines again because his lip lines are really subtle. Alright, and then the last step would be to erase out your highlights once again. Alright, just so I know, how many of you have teeth showing in your picture? Teeth showing in your picture. Nobody in this class? Nobody has teeth showing? I bet there's one of you out there. Okay, so for teeth, well, let me dull down that side a little bit. So if you do have teeth showing, we're going to look at the value of the teeth, but we're going to also, I do this one first. I've changed over the years. Do the gums first. And then we'll look at value of the teeth. The teeth probably are not very dark because they're light in value anyway. So with a blender only, you can add value to the teeth, and we'll refine with wooden pencil, like the lines between the teeth. All right, so I do gums first, and I just use value that's already on my blender, and I try to look at like what value are the gums compared to the lips. So his gums are lighter, sometimes they're darker because they're in shadow. So with just the blender, I'm going to add the gum value. I'm kind of looking at trying to keep with the shape of the teeth. And if there's any highlights in the gums, you can erase that out. Or any shiny parts because it's wet. Okay. All right, then we're going to add value with the blender to the teeth. So I'm looking at how, especially if it's curving away, how it's a little bit more shadowy, and then he has some shadow happening over here. So the teeth, to make them look not like horse teeth, should get darker in the corners. And if there's highlights or shiny parts, obviously you need it to be grayish in order to make it look shiny. then with pencil top eraser, off padding. Actually, let's do teeth off padding. Wait on. Then with pencil top eraser, I would erase out shiny parts in the teeth, or if you have teeth that do look straight up white. Okay, so I'm looking. All right, then with wooden pencil, or if you can be really gentle with mechanical, I would go back and put the lines between the teeth in and kind of refine any of the gum area that you need to. And I would gently kind of blend over those lines so it looks more like a shadow and less like a hard outline. All right, then if the mouth is open and it's dark inside, I will use mechanical pencil to refine the edges of the teeth, and I'm going to fade down. And I'm looking at like right underneath his teeth how it's all shadow anyway, and so I'm going to fade down into the tongue area. And so looking really closely at your teeth, like is it straight? Are they curved at the bottoms? And try to get it as perfect as you can along the teeth because you're not going to go back and blend along the edge. Those kind of fade out. All right. Then, if you do have a tongue showing, I would look at like any, like can you see the line? Can you see any kind of texture? I'm just gonna give it a general kind of darker value. All right, then if there's any lighter values in the tongue or texture, if you have texture, you can use this. Like I can see a little bit of like the speckliness on like the taste buds. And then he has like a slight highlight that you can use kneaded eraser. Alright, then I feel like this part's a little fuzzier. So you do all that work, and then if you have braces, I just put, let me draw a big tooth. Okay, so let's say you have teeth. Okay. Usually the brackets kind of look like 4 little circles. And then there's the wire. Just make sure the wire kind of curves like the teeth do. And that's like pretty much all I would do for braces on a large scale. But on a small scale, then I would put and I wouldn't even blend. I would just like leave them like that. And if your teeth are a little bit bigger and you can have braces, you see braces, and you can like kind of touch blend, but I wouldn't really blend them. So you do all that work and then lay the braces on top. All right, there's that.